can feel a little bit like an interloper in the industry section coming from a research institute, but it does fit in with the case studies. So yeah, bear with me for a little bit of the research side of things. Yeah, my name is Liz Atwood. I come from a background of marine biology, oceanography, mathematics, and I'm now really into using satellite imagery to look at a variety of different things. For oil spills, as we know, they impact the environment. They come from a variety of different areas. And recent studies from satellites are suggesting that potentially there's a lot more small unreported slicks that are actually happening fairly often, and that a larger portion of them is coming from anthropogenic sources than we've previously been thinking. There's some very large differences of the number there up in the upper left-hand corner of how much is coming from natural sources and how much is coming from anthropogenic sources. Also, if we look at this globally, it's found that a lot of these detected slicks are happening in the nearshore environment. So who is using operational satellite monitoring in looking for oil spills, monitoring for oil spills? It tends to be the richer, well-to-do countries up in what we would term the global north. I haven't found a better term for that yet, but that is not necessarily where we have a lot of the increase in production of crude oil. A lot of it is also happening in countries that do not have the economic resources to be having things like large operational oil spill monitoring systems. Also, as we saw in the last slide, a lot of these small spills are occurring in the coastal shelf zones. Coastal shelf zones, they don't represent a very large portion of the globe, but they have really big impact. They're providing most of where we're getting our fisheries production, and they are also representing a very large portion of ocean primary production. By primary production, I'm meaning algae that leads to small animals, that leads to what the fish are eating, that leads to what we are eating. This is the bottom of the food chain. So there's potentially a hole in a part of the globe that we're not looking at very much. So at PML, we have experience both producing and working with global data sets, both in modeling and remote sensing. Here we have some nice fancy animations showing a couple of those variables. We also work with nearshore and inshore water quality. I work in the Earth Observation Science and Applications Division there, and we do that to support a variety of international efforts to address the fact of making sure that the water that humanity is mostly interacting with is safe for us. Just to go quickly into this is my justification of like why this belongs on the industry side. Similar to NOC, PML has also a commercial arm. This is PML Applications. They offer a variety of services, trying to support the blue economy. And this is sort of how we overlap. It's a very close relationship. We all reside within the same building. That is our gorgeous 80s architecture cement building. It houses both PML, the charity research side, which is where I work, and also the PML apps. The goal is that the research feeds into the commercial side, that it can be marketed as a service, and all additional revenue can then go back and support the charity to continue doing research. Very similar to what they do at NOC. So what am I going to be talking about? Synthetic aperture radar. This is a particular type of remote sensing from a satellite. For those of you who already know this, apologies. For those who don't, it'll be hopefully interesting. This is a type of a sensor you can stick on a satellite. It is actively sending out a signal and then giving you information about how much of that signal is being returned. Think of sonar, just with a light wave instead. We have various satellites that have been carrying this starting in the 90s up until now, and we have one of the best systems available from Copernicus is the Sentinel-1 system. And the way that we are using this to detect things that are creating slicks on water is you're looking at what is the difference in return over something where you can have many small little waves forming due to the capillary action of wind interacting, and that being dampened in places where you have oil instead, which is not forming small waves as easily. But it's not as easy as that. Many things can look dark on the surface. This is oftentimes an issue. So the idea of synthetic aperture radar is pretty simple. You just look at where you're getting less of the signal returned, but there are a variety of things besides just oil that can produce that type of signal. Here we have two nice publications that do a good job of representing an index of what those different signals can look like. So you can get this from oil, but you can also get it from algae slicks on the surface. You can get it from upwelling, you can get it from rain events. You also need to have the right wind conditions, as I mentioned, that we're looking at this capillary wave formation and how that's different within and outside of an oil slick. It can be difficult. You need to know what you're looking at when you look at the SAR imagery, and you can use additional data such as wind fields or looking at optical data to remove some of these false positives, but it's something that you need to look out for. So the golden apple that we're always looking for is something that would be an automated system to be able to go through a stack of SAR imagery and find automatically what are the oil spill detections within that and separating them apart from the lookalikes. This is what is always difficult with anyone who is trying to provide a service like this. Oftentimes you have different levels of automation. It's very easy to find a dark object within one of these images, but then oftentimes you need to have a human interpreter look at those dark objects to separate them out into these different areas. One thing that we've done at PML is try to use machine learning to get around this. So oftentimes what one is using, I think on that last slide, forgot to mention, what a human would use would be looking at things like morphology and texture, so looking at the shape of the spill to differentiate, for instance, from the biogenic slick up there, other data as well. And so with our machine learning algorithm, what we do is we have trained multiple different machine learning algorithms that are specifically picking out different one of those lookalikes. We're then putting them in competition with one another and creating a probability score for each one of these dark objects. We get a confidence score, and after a certain threshold, we say, okay, those are not going to be slicks. True positive rate, 77%. Not amazing, but at the same time, it's being very realistic about what our detection rate or the uncertainty of this method is. This got developed in a project a couple of years ago. Probably, I would imagine those in the room who were at the ITAC and PML probably heard about this project the last time. I was not there, but I'm just guessing they talked about it. This was the project where this algorithm got developed. This was working in Southeast Asia together with a company called RiskAware. This was also one where we were starting to bridge that gap between PML to charity and PML applications. And this was not only doing detection, but looking at dispersal modeling, seeing how dispersal will change if we put different things in the water, etc. We have a nice example of where it got used in Malaysia, but this is the basis of where this algorithm came from. So moving on from there, we had a project working with a group of countries in West Africa, who just got mentioned in the last presentation. These are the WACA countries. And they are interested in looking at oil. So oil extraction has been increasing in West Africa and is seen to start increasing in some countries that until now have not had that much oil extraction, in particular Senegal, which is where the coordination of the Coastal Observation Network for West Africa sits. So this was a near and dear question to their heart. This was done in a European Space Agency project called EU4SD Marine. In this, we were working together with the WACA countries. This represented 10 countries across West Africa, as shown over here. In red, you see the detected oil spills over 1 year for that period of time. As we were doing the operational monitoring, we were sending, if this leak would be detected in a received image, then a report would be sent to national teams. We're working together with the WACA consortium, and we would ask for, validation that, that it wasn't an oil slick, or at least just information. This happened, we provided a shapefile, and this got a lot of pickup. They were very interested in looking at this. Different countries for different reasons. Sometimes you get a lot of interest, and then all of a sudden the interest would just fall straight off and you never hear from them again. But this is just the way of working with a lot of different countries who each have their own story of how much are they interested in this or how much are they not interested in this. But one thing that you get with these regional maps is you get to see patterns of occurrence over time. Engagement and uptake. We got a lot of interest from each one of the countries, certainly from Senegal, which was the central coordinator. We were able to publish about, well, not publish, but at least write bulletin reports about the findings that we were having. We got the results incorporated into the West Africa State of the Coast report that goes to governments in each one of those countries as far as informing them for any policies that they are intending to make in the coming years. Some nice value statements. The detection of oil spills in West Africa coast is of great importance in the fight against marine pollution. And yes, we are certainly looking into trying to continue to support these countries. But one thing that we've run into is the fact that they don't have that much money to pay for a large operational service. This is taking all those little red dots and trying to look at occurrence over time. So in the little slide over there with the red line on it, that shows you what the coverage is from these satellites. These satellites are not taking a picture every day. There are 2 different satellites and they look at different areas. So each one of those areas along there is being looked at with a different number of times. And if you want to control for that, you can't just simply add up the number of detections you have in one area. You need to control for the fact that they're being looked at a different number of times. So this is a report that would show trends over time. And one of the things, as I said, this is the golden arrow detection rate. We saw it has uncertainties, but if you're looking and getting the same signal multiple times from the same area, it's reducing your risk that you're just looking at false positives. So this is interesting. This is just 1 year. I would like to do it for all 5 years. That would be available with Sentinel-1. And with these data, you can also start to zoom into particular areas. This is an area off the Ghana coastline. And this is just looking at the slicks that were larger than 10 square kilometers. And what you have when you look at it over time, you can see that they all appear to be coming from around the same location. And so this is information that one could supply to anyone in Ghana who would be interested in hearing about it. And if they decide to take action on it, then that would be up to them. But it certainly is providing information that they would potentially find interesting when making decisions about how they're managing their coastal resources. This is another example looking at a coastal source in Senegal. And place. This is again looking in Ghana. One play. There we go. And this is just a really simple, but showing that if you were to do some of the dispersal modeling, you would see that that spill, if it stayed long enough at the surface, would have potential of reaching a large city and also a Ramsar wetland site. So important areas. So that was West Africa, ongoing. Just wanted to put that out there as far as this is a capability that we have and that we're interested in being able to either continue in West Africa or look at other areas, looking at trends over time. As far as oil spill, it's not something that a lot of people have done with remote sensing data. This is something new, very different, very exciting. It's using a different platform for synthetic aperture radar. I hope I impressed on you all that using Sentinel-1 data, this is free data. It's not looking at it every day. Sometimes you can have 12 days in between one image and the next, but there are developments within the private satellite imagery community that allow us to use synthetic aperture radar on platforms that are not only able to take images every day, but potentially multiple images in one day. This would give you an opportunity to get a satellite coverage image of how oil dispersal is happening at the surface with multiple images every day. There's some caveats to the data. It's not very clean data. All things remote sensing, they sound great, they make nice, nice maps, but you have limitations and you have pros and cons for things like this. But this is something that we're exploring and being able to do automated detection within images like this. I'm happy to take any questions.